to join this session. In fact, Gayatri is also joining very shortly. And again, special thanks to Soumya also for agreeing to host and moderate this session. I would say that we can start the session now, but I would like to take one permission. Can we record this session, all three of you, if I have your permission, for the benefit of our candidates and aspiring students? Thank you very much. Thank you. Also, just want to mention for the benefit of all the attendees here that we will be having this discussion in which you stand a very good chance to learn from the discourse that our alumni are going to have. Also, at the end of the session, we are going to have a specific question and answer session for the admission process, and if you want to know anything about PGP. So be patient, and we'll be giving you a chance. You can unmute yourself at that point of time and then ask questions. So Soumya, all over to you. Floor is open. Thank you.
Thank you, Ketan, and thank you everyone for joining in. I must say that I was exactly in your shoes 1 year ago, attending sessions like these. So, and I also look forward to going into consulting. So this session is equally as interesting and exciting for me as for all of you.
Soumya, I can't hear you. I mean, are you on mute?
No, I am not. Sorry.
I can hear.
Okay, yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
Great. And of course, if anyone has any questions, like Ketan mentioned, you can ask at the end, or I will keep an eye on the chat box and the Q&A box. So please make full use of those. But I will still try to get most questions answered from our stellar panel today as much as possible. So I will start first with Siddharth, and sorry, I'm going in the order of seniority of class, if I can. So Siddharth Madan is from ISB class of 2012. He's currently a partner at Boston Consulting Group and brings with him around 13 years of experience in management consulting and analytics, spanning various industries like TMT, financial services, and healthcare. Looks like we lost Siddharth for a moment there. Siddharth, can you hear us? Wait for Siddharth to join back.
Sorry, I got disconnected. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, great. We can hear you now. We are also missing Siddharth's batchmate Gayatri, who I believe will be joining very soon. We also have with us
Trust me, it has nothing to do with me.
Yes. We also have with us Amol Srivastava, who is from ISB's class of 2013. Amol is a director with KPMG and again brings with him significant experience across IT consulting and post-merger integration activities pre and post ISB. Last but not the least, of course, we have Rohit Somani from class of 2016, who is a director at Ernst & Young and has more than 10 years of experience in finance and operations strategy. So thank you all for joining this stellar discussion today, and I look forward to learning from you as the others. If I can request you to, my first question is to all of you, and we'll need some digging down through your memory lane if I can, is if you can just briefly, share with us what was your experience pre-ISB, coming into ISB, and then post-ISB, just so that we get to know you a bit more and also gives everyone here a perspective on how your careers spanned the last, let's say, 10 or 12 years or so. So if I can start with Rohit and then maybe Amol and Siddharth.
Hi, very good evening. Can you hear me? Okay, thank you so much to ISB for inviting us for this session. And as Soumya rightly pointed out, I was in this similar situation back when in 2014 when I was trying to apply to ISB. So I can kind of understand and give some context hopefully today in terms of why ISB and some of the questions that you may have specifically around consulting. A little bit about myself. I had a predominantly finance background prior to ISB. I had done my Bachelor's of Commerce from St. Xavier's in Calcutta. I'd also completed my chartered accountancy exams in 2011. Was working with PricewaterhouseCoopers in their audit division for the first 2-3 years of what they call articleship in CA, like a trainee program before you qualify. Once I qualified, I spent about 3 years in EY Ernst & Young's M&A practice, uh, looking at multiple deals across primarily consumer and technology. And yeah, I mean that was my background while coming into ISV. I was like, while I had finance background, while working on the deals, I figured out that I need to get a more holistic view about a business, and that was my primary consideration while coming into ISV. Yeah, that's a bit about myself.
Thank you, Rohit. Interestingly, I also come from finance. I've done my CFA. I'm here with 5 years of experience for the exact same reasons that you mentioned. So anyone here who thinks that, like Rohit said, he was from finance and he kind of moved into consulting directly after that. So because I saw a lot of questions on that, and maybe we'll discuss this in more detail later in the panel. But thank you for sharing that. Amol, if I can request you to go next.
Thanks, Soumya. Hi, everybody. Just piling upon what Soumya and Rohit said, I'm also a finance background. I did my BCom honors from Delhi University, DCSC, if you know it. It's near Chanakyapuri in Delhi. And I'm a chartered accountant by profession. But I had a very interesting career start. I did my articleship from a firm in Delhi. And during the articleship, I realized that I do not like either audit or taxation. So now I was stuck what to do. So I started my career with Tata Consultancy Services, not in a finance function, not in a finance domain, but in technology. So I was initially working for them as a QA analyst. And then back in the day, that used to be quite a high profile job. Now it's not. And post that, I worked as a business analyst and business lead for them. What I primarily did over there was, so if you see these softwares, ICC Direct or your any other Zerodha, or you will see the profit and loss statement coming out. You will see how much you have earned, how much is your percentages. This coding is done by technical people, but who tells them what to do with coding? This is what is being done by guided, that is being a small part of a consulting is being done by people like us, chartered accountants. Companies like TCS, Infosys, not just chartered accountants, they actually hire doctors also. They hire geologists because everybody uses software these days. So working with TCS companies, as and when IT grew in India, it became a lot more commoditized. Things went into automation. So that is where I started feeling how to get out of it. That is when multiple thoughts crossed my mind, how to do it, maybe do an MBA from outside India. I was actually in US at that time when I was applying for ISB. So that those thoughts started crossing. But the biggest problem is if you're working in like in a TCS, and all the calls you're gonna get is from Infosys, or you're gonna get Tech Mahindra or any HCL. This is all the calls you are getting. And that is when I discussed with a lot of alums, not just from ISB, from other places. And when I decided to take the plunge, I did my ISB right after 6 months after I got married. So I filled my application when I was in the process of getting married, and I got married and I got into ISB. So my wife was quite supportive of that decision, and I was successful. What I think post ISB, I was able to move into M&A. So I actually started with finance transformation, but somehow along the way, I got into M&A and I started liking it. M&A, so what we call in M&A, mostly if somebody from a finance background or who have done your BCom and all would know, you have read about synergies. You have read about how to implement, how to calculate those synergies, how to calculate those values, which is where, or if you read the newspaper, finance newspaper, economic times and all, you will see these two companies are merging, $200 million, $300 million, these lofty figures. We help clients on how to realize it. Okay, you said $300 million. Clients have become very smart these days. They're going to find $20 million, help us realize it. Give us a plan. Help us do the strategy, pull a strategy around it. And that is why maybe my expertise lies in what we call as post-deal execution. Once the deal has been done, the deal has been signed, how you help client realize that synergy, how you help client realize that value. The biggest advantage for me doing an ISB was in past 10 years, as we were saying, I actually was able to switch my careers. I started in finance transformation. I then went to a pre-deal and then I went to post-deal. The biggest advantage or benefit which ISB provided me in these past 10 years was, being an ISB graduate, it is very easy for me to get those interviews. It is very easy for me to get to cross that barrier. That okay, if I want to try something new, if I want to try, and I have, like in past, as everybody does, I have to give a couple of interviews, but not exactly in the field I'm working in. So I think so that is the biggest advantage which ISB provided me, to open those doors for me. So whatever I want to try new, even at that stage of my career, if I want to try and switch, there will always be a support. There will always be a guidance in there. So this has been a journey so far, quite interesting. Hope so it's interesting future also and interacting with you. Thank you. Thanks, Soumya.
Amol. To all the people here who want to apply to ISB, Amol just gave you like loads of details for your essay on why ISB. So I hope you made notes, but we'll get into that later also. Siddharth, if I can request you to go next on your experience during and post.
Sure. You can hear me okay? Okay, great. So I, like a lot of other panelists, I actually had a finance and analytics background prior to ISB. I did my undergraduate program from CBA, College of Business Studies, Delhi, and I was pursuing CFA in parallel. I joined actually a company by the name Inductive, which has since then been acquired. It was one of the pioneers in data analytics consulting space in India then. So worked there for 3 years, joined ISB for very obvious reasons, had an excellent year. Post ISB, I worked with some other organization in consulting space and then joined BCG. Have been with BCG for 7 years as part of BCG India and BCG Europe. For me, consulting was about, touching across so many different types of problems, so many different industries. So I've done almost 8 or 9 practice areas, which are vertical practice areas, which essentially means like from consumer goods to agri-tech to telco, media, telecom, finance. I have almost touched everything that I really wanted to do ever across industries and pretty much every function and strategy topic. In recent years, I've started specializing on technology and digital topics. So I work with some of the tech digital first startups. I also work with some of the legacy organizations that discover the power of digital, and that's what has kept me going.
So that we also have Gayatri. Gayatri, can you hear us? Gayatri, can you hear Looks like there is some audio issue at Gayatri's end.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You can hear us all right?
Cool. Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I'm running late.
No problem, no problem. Thank you for joining in. We were just waiting and saying that Siddharth's batchmate is left and now you've joined. So I'll just briefly introduce you, and you were just on our first question, so it's great you've joined just in time. So for everyone on the call, Gayatri is from ISB's class of 2012 and is currently an associate director at KPMG. And Gayatri also brings with her more than 14 years of experience in consulting, which must be very exciting for everyone here since they all want to explore this field. So Gayatri, my first question was we wanted to get to know everyone a bit more. So if you can just maybe briefly talk about your experience pre-ISB, during, and how it has been after ISB in the last few years, then that will be helpful.
No problem. So thanks, Soumya. I have about now a total of 14 plus years of experience. I had about 4 years before ISB, most of which was in market research, and then the last almost a year was in strategy consulting. I worked across across businesses, healthcare, information technology, agriculture for a bit before ISB. Post ISB has been predominantly it's been across industries, but more function or solution aligned. And just by the nature of the clients that I've worked with, it's been more financial services and oil and gas. All of the last about 10 plus years have been in consulting itself. And yeah, I hope that helps.
Yes, very, very helpful. Thank you. I'll jump straight into the core questions now, which is why most of us are here, is what is consulting about? What does a typical day look like? And a lot of people here, as you can see, the chats are absolutely flooded on how do we get into consulting? If you don't have experience, what are the things you're looking for? So Rohit, if I can maybe just start from you, because you've also, kind of gone through the levels of consulting. Like I saw pre-ISB also you went consulting, post-ISB also. So how has your experience been like? Like, what does a typical day look like? And does it change as you move across the levels? And what kind of skills do you think kind of develop across those levels?
I think consulting, I mean, it's in itself is a very, very wide term. As I think some of the panelists mentioned, that you get to work on multiple sectors, multiple functional areas, sectors as consumer, tech, healthcare, and some of these questions are coming through in the chat box, finance, synergy, mergers, right? So there's a range of topics in today's business worlds which are fairly complex, right? And uh, my general understanding of the entire consulting space is that, at a lot of the situations where we work on, the management team does not have enough bandwidth or past experience to solve all problems internally, right? And which is why they would hire a consultant, either because of someone having very deep experience in solving some problems repeatedly, and sometimes to get an extra pair of hands and legs. So that is where the consultants come in to solve business problems essentially, right? Now you could come in from a sector, you could have sector experience, you could have functional experience in terms of supply chain, tech, finance, and so on and so forth. There are multiple practice areas, and there is, like, it's a big elephant, and you can in your career, like, while you try to get a overview of it, at some point in time you need to learn to specialize in solving specific problems. In terms of the role itself, I think when I started my journey as a consultant, obviously, that time you are more of a generalist trying to get your hands around multiple sectors, multiple practice areas. And at that level, the essential skills that are required for you is to be very data driven and to have an analytical bent of mind, and obviously put in the hours. Like, there's this, you need to roll up your sleeves and, really go do the grunt work, and where you pick up experience, right? And uh, it's also about, at some level, like, your ability to solve problems generally, like ability. When you go into a situation, there'll be a lot of there'll be a range of unstructured data. The problem statement itself may not be very clear in the client's mind. So how do you start with, being very clear in terms of what problem you are solving, what part of the problem are you going to take put your hands on, and then bringing all your experience into place in terms of, working through the problem and coming up with a solution. And as you grow through the ranks, I would say, there are multiple levels. I would, but if I had to really break it down into two or three levels, you start by being someone who is an individual contributor, trying to, leverage your analytical ability, supporting your manager. The second level would be when you reach a position of a manager, where you're not only responsible for your own work, but also responsible for getting work done through others, which would mean organizing resources, preparing a work plan, to some extent, managing client relationships. And then obviously, in consulting, when you become senior, you're expected to have relationships in the market, have a specialized area where you can guide the team in terms of how to solve the problems, right? And obviously get business for the firm, most essential at more senior levels, right? So I would say, that's my take in terms of, a little bit about what consulting is about, and, how your role involves broadly over time.
Thank you, Rohit. I don't have as much perspective as you, but I did have 5 years in which I saw a bit of the transition that you mentioned. So absolutely like spot on. First 2 years were just grunt work where I was crunching numbers on Excel, and then gradually you start being front end and you talk to clients and start managing projects. Amol, if I can just bring you in on this as well, because Rohit mentioned, there are different types of consulting. And like you mentioned, you were in TCS before ISB, and then you moved on to a different role after ISB. So did you perhaps notice any differences in, the skill sets required, or like what changed between these two consulting segments, if I can put it that way?
I think so. Soumya, the biggest difference for me is organizations like TCS and Infosys are more on implementation. So that is where they get the revenue from. So when they are going consulting to a client, their aim and eventual goal is to sell that implementation service. The people sitting out there helping day to day that work at a low available rate. So that's how that organization works. When I moved into consulting, what changed for me is organizations like Big Four or any of the top consulting. We do not have an army of like 500 people sitting there to help implement these things like technology companies. It moved a little bit up, if I would say. So if I would put it here with TCS, and this is where the client was, and client will be relying more on you to help them solve the problem, as Rohit said. The problem could be in any phase of the business or any part of the business. As Rohit mentioned, a client does not have the bandwidth, and to a larger extent, client do not have a skill set also to do it. Let me take an example from Indian market. It's an old deal, but I think so most of you might have read about it. Satyam and this Tech Mahindra when they merged. It was a very different and unique kind of a merger. First of all, it was coming out of a financial scandal. And then the biggest part was this, Satyam was a bigger company as compared to Tech Mahindra, which usually does not happen in these organizations. So, and this is never going to happen in life of Tech Mahindra ever. That this kind of deal of a reverse happened. So even though Tech Mahindra employees did not have that bandwidth, they did not even have the skill to do it. But coming to taking help from consulting, we have done those things. We have been there, seen that. And that is where we come into picture and we help the client in these type of unique situations and solutions also. Talking about the skill set, I think so problem solving is a skill set which you need in any organization you are working for. What changes in consulting primarily is the problems could be very different from one project to another project. You cannot just take everything, all the templates, just blindly go and copy on the other project. You might have to start thinking through because every client situation is unique, every problem statement is unique. So I think so that is what makes it exciting. And that is where Rohit mentioned the hours also come into picture. So you have to put in that hours, and that hours are respective of the level. So it does not mean that if you have reached a certain level, you can like maybe sit and relax, and then others are doing the work. I think so at every level, the type of the work changes, but you have to do it. It's not kick back and relax. It will never happen in consulting.
Thank you, Amol. I guess that's steep learning curve, the number of hours. Only then you kind of get through that. So absolutely. So that if I can just bring you in, because I see a lot of questions on MBB, but also on just what Rohit and Amol, mentioned, that problem solving is a very important skill that people look for in consulting. So if I can maybe just ask you to elaborate on anything apart from problem solving that you think, given that you're a partner and you recruit a lot of people, I'm sure now, that you particularly look for into candidates who want to join BCG. And if I can just kind of put a second part of that question, that do you think, and how did you think ISB kind of helped you develop that problem solving structure and skill? So if you can just elaborate on those two.
Sure, so I think many questions, so let me take them one by one. First, on the original questions, I think my co-panelists covered it quite well, but consulting is very broad, as everyone pointed out. Like while we talk about multi-vertical exposure, you will find in the market vertical focused consulting organizations also, or functional focused consulting organizations, that you will enter a practice area and then you will stick to that. Yeah. So there is no one ground rule. I also heard that, in the first year you do the grunt work and then you start meeting the client. Like in at least for BCG and more broadly for MBB, you start, owning CXO level relationships right from day one. The intern on my case talks to the CEO. So, I mean, that's the level of exposure where you can start. So it really depends on, what kind of a problem you're working on, what kind of a expectation that, that organization has set with the client. So there's no one ground rule. Coming to the second part now, so may just remind me if I missed anything. I think your second question was around problem
What
solving. What do you look for in consulting first? I think so. I'll say, look, as again, as BCG, what we look for, and this will apply more broadly to MBB for sure, and more broadly to consulting as well. So three things predominantly. One is problem solving. It's not about knowing. It's not about knowledge. It's not like somebody asks you a question and you know the right answer. It's not knowledge. It's about how you think through any problem given to you. So in most situations when I do interview, and if some of you guys, I hope many of you land into ISP, I handle ISP recruitment, so you will definitely see me next year. Um, but we definitely look for how you are thinking through problems which are non-familiar to you. So most often I would usually ask a problem which is not from your industry background, because we're not testing knowledge. We often, every time I get into a client situation, even at my level, I learn lots of new stuff about client. But it's about how you think through a problem. The second element is about in interviews, it's about, or in CV shortlisting, it's about what kind of impact you have delivered, which shows your, the attitude you would have about things. And it can be anything. Like you took up a hobby, what level did you take it to? You did something in college, or irrespective of which industry you come from, what did you do in the 2 years, 3 years that you spent in any organization, right? So it's about more practicality, effectiveness, impact. Yeah. How you have leveraged the small opportunities which came your way. Yeah, that's the second dimension. The third, and equally critical, is communication and presence. Like if tomorrow we throw you in front of a CEO or a CXO, how do you carry yourself? And it's a popular saying, you might find it in many places, airport test. Like if you're stuck with this person for at the airport, say for 30 minutes, do you enjoy the conversation or not? I mean, that's a hypothetical way of putting it across, but what we're looking for is that if you expose this person to a client and the client starts talking about a business problem, can you have an intelligent conversation? And that intelligence will come from, part of it problem solving, part of it attitude, which is the second dimension I spoke about. And you will need a bit of communication. So that's what we look for. Soumya, you had a third question.
I had a third question, but given your answer, I'm going to change that question a bit, and I'm going to follow up on what you said. And so that if you can take it first, and maybe Gayatri, if you can just pitch in on this as well. So you mentioned, kind of the three buckets, the set of skills you're looking for, and one common theme in ISB when I was applying, but also like other people in my batch, even on the chat, feel is if we don't have consulting experience prior to ISB, then maybe it'll be difficult to transition into consulting. But you kind of very helpfully set out there are these three buckets, which in my view I can see are not really limited to consulting, but
absolutely, these are very fundamental skills. Of course, some kind of consulting skills would have helped you hone these skills, but by no means this is a prerequisite. In fact, we for sure look for people from different backgrounds. In fact, like I wouldn't, if I recruit say 40 people out of ISP, I'm definitely not gonna have a high proportion of people who come from consulting or similar backgrounds, for sure. And Soumya, if I may, I think you had asked a very important question on how ISB helps on problem solving. I think I missed that, and let me just add 2 cents to that. So look, one of the things which I really valued at ISP was how we approached most of the sessions in the form of case studies. Almost every class that you go through, especially like the ones you will do in strategy, you'll end up reading some of the best case studies across the globe. These will be business problems which will come your way. Every class will be about studying a business problem, how you would have approached it, how would you solve for those. Yeah. So every bit of what you will do at ISB will prepare you for this kind of a situation.
Thank you, Siddharth. And with that, I'm also reminded I have 2 case studies to read for my classes tomorrow. So after this session, I'm going to get to that. But Gayatri, if I can just get you in on this as well. You have, like you said, you have 14 years of experience. I'm sure you're heavily recruiting as well. So is there anything particular, like Siddharth obviously mentioned it from an MBB perspective, but do you think it differs for the Big Four, or is it similar? Like, what do you usually look for?
No. So in terms of your question of whether consulting companies prefer to recruit ex-consultants, um, having managed ISB recruitment now for the past few years, we get a lot of applicants and very good applicants who have ex-Big Four experience as well. When we look at the pool of applicants, it's not like they score higher and somebody who has non-consulting experience scores lower. No, that's not how we do it. And I'm pretty sure I'm speaking even for the other Big Fours. Of course, it's a package, right? So your past experience, your what you've done before, whether it's consulting or not consulting, your performance. If you get shortlisted, then how your communication skills. We get stakeholder management, like Siddharth was talking about. I mean, one of the key things that you look for is if you're in a difficult situation, which you usually will be, in terms of A, you have a time deadline to meet, B, you don't know the industry you're working in, which is also usually the case. But you also need to have a presence. Your client is coming to you with a problem. So you can't go to him saying, oh, I haven't done this work before. So, I don't know. Like the answer cannot be, I don't know. You can't just freeze as well. So if you're put in a difficult situation, how are you able to then problem solve, also have good stakeholder management skills, have a presence, are able to communicate what you want to say? It's the whole, it's everything. And of course, it's not like we expect people when we do an interview that they are going to be a 10 on 10 on everything. Okay. There are people, I had prior consulting skills, experience, not too much though, but it was nothing like what I learned probably in the first few weeks when I joined KPMG. It was literally like an uphill jog without shoes, if I may put it that way. So no, short answer is no. Doesn't give you any extra. It definitely doesn't penalize people who don't have consulting skills.
Got it. Thank you. I maybe add my perspective, because I used to handle ISB recruitment for 2 years at my firm before joining ISB. I'm now on the other side of the spectrum, but even at my firm, Siddharth and Gayatri have mentioned, deliberately the firm wanted people with very diverse backgrounds, whether industries or functional skills, just so that there's a good pool of people who can kind of put their heads in and bring diverse views when they're solving problems. So I've seen it firsthand as well. And Siddharth, if I can come back to you on something related, and then maybe I'll go to Rohit and Amol on something else. But one thing that is key in even within ISB actually, but also pre-ISB, there's this notion that acads somehow trump everything that you have done, and they're so important to get into consulting, whether it's Big Four, whether it's MBB. So what is your view on that? Like, how important do you as a recruiter at ISB, how much importance do you give to acads, and does it hinder anyone's chances if, let's say, they've not absolutely killed it in acads before or during ISB?
I think you're in term 2 or 3, you will realize very soon that GPA cannot matter, at least at ISB campus. I mean, just look at how many people are going to get 4.0 and you'll know why it cannot matter. Yeah. For last at least several years, you just cannot make any sense out of GPAs at ISB, so forget it. We don't use it explicitly.
Right. Rohit and Amol, if you have any perspective from the Big Four side of things.
No, I don't think so. It matters much, Soumya. I actually was reading the chat and I found a very interesting question there. Let me just address it. So somebody was asking, since me and Rohit were talking about problems, so how we actually prepare ourselves for more problem solving or case study. First is practice, and second is, I think there's a lot of common sense. So I'll give you an example. I was talking to a candidate for an interview, these are all random questions we present to the candidate. So the question was, there is a mall space for 10,000 square feet. And if an average shop size is 250 square feet, how many shops would there be in the mall? The candidate just jumps on answer 40. So the point which all of us have been to mall. The point which they missed was, aren't you going to walk in the mall? Are you going to enter the mall? So how, if there are 40 shops, how are you going to go from one shop to another shop? This is a very, very common sense question. It doesn't matter you're from an IT background, you're from finance background, you're from a, this is a common sense question. This is where you have to think through what we have been talking about, the problem solving. Are you just jumping onto the first answer that comes to your mind, or are you thinking through the problem? And that is where, when you start preparing for the case study, that is when you start looking for the answers. As Siddharth also mentioned, we hardly test, we obviously test the knowledge, but a lot of the interviews which Big Four do and other consulting do, it's more on how is the person able to hold that conversation. It's never a question answer round. I think so. Those days are back like 10, 15 years ago. They will be like, okay, you answer 5 questions and you're being done with it. So if you cannot hold a conversation for next 30, 35 minutes with us, how are we going to hold that conversation with the client? When they can be random, be asking you anything. A major challenges that you mentioned with the clients is they usually digress. You have a set agenda, and on the first agenda point, they digress. And that is where you get put into a very difficult situation, how to bring back the whole conversation into that. So those are the kind of things, and I'm mentioning these points because these are the things which go beyond your academics. You could be like a 4.0 GPA, but if you're not able to manage and handle these things, you will not be successful. So it's a mix of everything which we look at.
Got it. Thank you, Amol. Rohit, if I can ask you that and club it with one more question. Uh, on consulting, like usually the opinion is that, it's a very charming profession also because you get to travel a lot, you get to interact with clients. So how do you think that kind of dynamic maybe helps you in, how well you do at consulting, or just helps your personality, helps hone your skill set? And how often, do you think you travel? Like, just as an example, the kind of consulting I was in, we hardly traveled. Like, it was economic consulting, and we had to maintain a distance for confidentiality and other purposes. So we couldn't travel as much to clients, even though mine was also front end consulting. So, how do you think it kind of differs, and if it helps at all, this travel, or if it hinders you? I don't know, because it does get a lot on your nerves if you're traveling every day.
So on the entire interview process and getting into consulting, I think I won't overkill it in terms of, like, I think all the panelists have said it in as many words that, ACADs are not the be all and end all, right? In terms of you getting selected, it's a how how you are able to manage the interview and how you are able to convey your strengths, communicate clearly, and those things matter much more. But I would like to add that, an interest in academics, and I'm seeing some of these questions coming through, like, some people are asking that, how do we figure out in which part of consulting, consulting is there are multiple routes to consulting, multiple things you can do, what type of consulting am I interested in? And I think in ISB, because of the range of subjects that you study, from operations, marketing, finance, strategy, right? I think that if you generally take interest in academics, ISB has such good quality education, right? It helps you narrow down, what are your areas of interest. You will obviously come with some innate preferences even before you join ISB. But once you enter ISB, you will discover, that there could be more, like when you get introduced to new topics in terms of strategy, operations, marketing, and you get exposed to the entire academic material around, in ISB, it'll help you narrow down, which type of consulting firm or what type of consulting jobs you would enjoy more. So I think that is one of the things that you should keep in mind. And also, even uh, uh, while there are it is important for you to have problem solving skills, right? When you actually get into the consulting world, right? You need some theoretical knowledge, right? If you want to help a client, free up their cash flows by managing inventory better, just knowing very fundamentally through operations research, which is taught at ISB, will help you identify things which are not, I would say, obvious, or you may not have every intuition about everything. So I think that is one of the things that you need to keep in mind in terms of consulting as a job itself. Yes, specifically if I talk about myself, I have traveled quite a bit into multiple parts in India, uh, maybe 10-20% outside as well. So I think one, you learn to deal with different kinds of people from different parts of the country. You learn to deal with people right from a CXO level to someone who's at the bottom of the organization as well. And you understand, and I think that helps you evolve as a person in terms of what sort of how do you approach different people to if you're dealing with a CXO. Some CXOs may require a more sophisticated way to deal with. Some may be very hardcore desi people. So there will be really, there is no, I would say, straight formula based approach to it. Uh, Apart from that, I would say when you're in consulting, it also gives you a lot of flexibility. Like, well, a lot of people see traveling as a downside, but it also gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of, I think consulting is one of those industries where, work from home was an accepted practice even before the pandemic as well, right? So I think while there are traveling, you need to travel, and some people may like travel, some people may not like traveling, but there are like some added advantages of being in a consulting firm, yeah, in terms of like flexibility to structure your day and flexibility to do whatever way you want to work, but get the job done.
Thank you, Rohit. Very helpful. Get the job done, I think, is definitely the key thing that matters, whether it's working hours or travel. That's what you have to do at the end of the day. And on foreign travel, just picking up on what you said, Siddharth, I believe you mentioned that you've worked across India and Europe for BCG. So is it usual practice for consulting firms to you can kind of pick up foreign consulting projects quite easily, or it's kind of very rare and mostly based out of India if you join an Indian office? Like how does it work in BCG or maybe broadly in consulting?
So look, there are multiple different kinds of consulting organizations that you will come across. And I have been part of multiple. I have done, for example, prior to BCG, I was part of an organization, consulting company, which was acquired by uh, another consulting firm, which was US headquarters. So technically, we became a US subsidiary. Most of my work was US focused. I had an H1B. I used to travel sometimes for work, and work used to be remote. Yeah, that's one extreme. You will find plenty of organizations doing international work sitting out of India. Now, when it comes to BCG or MBB for that matter, we don't do remote work because fundamentally, look, the reason we get hired, or the proposition that we have for our clients, it is not about you'll have a cost arbitrage with people from India. It is about the value that you bring. And to be honest, like for in most cases, the kind of problems that I've worked in as part of BCG, having a local experience perspective on a local market made a difference. So for all my tenure in BCG, and it is by design, we only do local for local work. So a team in US will do only US work. Team in Europe will do only Europe work. We do only India work. But we have mobility options. If you want to move around, you can. So I essentially did an exchange program of sorts with Germany, moved there, and then came back. But when I was in Germany, I worked in UK, Germany, France, so most of that region. And when I'm in India, I do India work. We don't do cross work as much, but there are many organizations where you will get lots of international work from US, Europe, and Dubai happening from India. And some of them will require travel, international travel as well.
Got it. Thank you, Siddharth. And just picking up on this and kind of Amol, if I remember correctly, you mentioned in the initial part of the panel that you were outside India when you applied to ISB, and you were also looking at US schools. And there's also a question that that there is a norm that people from a lot of reputed business schools like NCR, WS, Wharton kind of get placed into these strategy consulting firms. So like how does ISB kind of come in, and if you can maybe elaborate on how you kind of got to that decision, given that you were already outside, and it have been easier for you to go to a US business school than ISB.
I think so. One reason for me was the difference in the cost of ISB and but I think so. Jokes apart, 2011-12 was the time when India was really growing. The kind of business problems, the kind of new things which are happening in India were not happening in the mature market. So that is what drew me to come back to India and apply within Indian, because you get an Indian perspective to the things in addition to the global part of the thing. To my luck, I still actually work a lot on US clients. I think so. If you ask me, there's not too much difference because I'm even an ISB graduate. I work on these deals with people coming out of Wharton or people. I don't see too much of a difference between the candidates or my friends or people who have interacted from ISB or people who have interacted outside. I think so. There was this one question relating to travel. Travel also depends a lot on which part of the business you are in. Usually in India, there are two parts, the India and the global business. So if you are in the global business, there will be a lot more global travel as compared to India travel. Global will have a different issues. The European market will have a different issues as compared to the US market. So I think so that challenges they offer as per that market.
Thank you, Amol. And if I can also just add to this, I also only applied to ISB while thinking of business schools, even though I come from a school where most of the people apply to outside US, but very specific considerations, like you said, and ISB is like the best in India, so why not? Or maybe globally one of the best, so why not? Gayatri, if I can just come to you next. Again, one of the questions, actually repeated questions in the Q&A, is on the number of years of work experience and how that matters in consulting. You mentioned that pre-ISB you had 4 years of work experience coming in. So do you see any pattern in, let's say, whether YLPs or specifically, or even people with more years of work experience, like 8 or 9 years of experience, like how are they positioned in consulting after ISB? Do they get different levels, and what is their typical role? Let's say joining a Big Four.
See, I don't think I can confidently speak for the other Big Four, but for KPMG at least, see, there's a sweet spot of the work experience because what happens is we would like to take people across campuses at the consultant, senior consultant level. When you start taking people at the manager level, it's really rare. I actually haven't seen it happening for a while now. That means that person has specific experience that you can position within your team already, and you can start running from get go, right? Because if I flip the question, I can't hire somebody at a senior position usually who is looking to his team members for direction and what to be done. That kind of experience comes with time. That direction comes with time and experience as well. So there is usually the experience that we get is, I would say, between 4 to 6 years. And again, it's very varied experience. What also happens, see, it's a little, it sometimes becomes a little relative because each firm also has their own HR and people policy. There is also sort of a harmonization within the firm also, right? Like you can't, you have people who are waiting in line to get promoted versus if you hire laterally or if you hire from campus, you also need to keep in mind as a recruiter what's happening already internally in your team. So that parity has to be maintained as well. Um, yeah, so we do get people with varied years of experience from B schools usually, and also specifically from ISB, if I can say, at least in the last 7, 8 years that I've been part of this process. The sweet spot is usually 4 to 6 years. We haven't seen a lot of people with like 8+8, 9 years of experience. We do get a lot of higher experienced individuals, but those usually come in laterally. That's a different process. Maybe Rohit and Amol can answer for the rest for the other big four, but I don't think I can speak confidently for them.
Yeah, but if I can also just kind of summarize what you said. So you said that typically, of course, you do take people from 4 to 6 years of experience, but even if you have someone with a higher experience, they would probably not start at a manager level if they don't have that specific skill set, but you'll still be open to kind of taking them on a level where they can progress through, the number of years and pick those skills up.
It's very relative, Soumya. Yes, sure. You're open to have a conversation, but then people have to be completely convinced that 3 rounds of interviews plus the HR discussion. People have to be convinced that if you hire somebody with far higher years of experience, then it's a good fit for the team, and it has to work both ways. It's good for the team, and it's also good for the individual. Yes, we are open to have that conversation. Short answer to your question.
Got it. Thank you. Rohit, Siddharth, or Amol, if you have anything to add to that from your firm's or your team's perspective.
No, I would agree with Gayatri on this one. Like there is a sweet spot, and the senior hires, we do make a lot of senior hires, but most of them come laterally. And when we do senior hiring, it is more inside out when the firm itself is looking for someone with a specialized skill set, right? So that's more inside out rather than seeing, how we can fit someone in, right? So I mean, that's how it works at EY, at least.
Amol, Siddharth, do you have
I think so. Not to beat that point, but a senior hire usually, if you are doing, will have some specialized experience, and we sometimes go outside, like a non-MBAs also. So, to quick example, we had somebody with like a 10 years of experience in ERP. So that person definitely will not be coming at a consultant background level or a senior junior level. They bring the change which I have seen in past 5, 6 years in the client's approaches. They are now looking for more specialized knowledge. So especially in the area where I work, where it's post deal, the deal has been signed. Now you help them actually merge the two businesses. So somebody who cannot talk that language, and usually post deal goes for long. So you end up talking to the second level ring manager, the third level. If you cannot speak their language, they will not have that conversation. So that is where we bring in senior folks who have that specialization, hire people with operations background, supply chain background.
I think I lost Amol. Not sure if other people lost Amol. Gayatri saying she lost Amol also. So we'll probably wait for Amol to join back. And I'll swiftly move on to the next question. I can see Siddharth has been answering loads of questions in the chat. And one thing, Siddharth, if I can maybe, because I got a lot of these in the Q&A box as well, consulting books to read or how to prepare before coming into ISB. If you can just, because I saw you've answered that question, so if you can just maybe.
Okay, so I already answered that question. Guys, please do not join ISB to get into consulting. That you're just shooting the, if some of you can relate to what the doctor does, you don't fix the symptoms, you basically solve the root things. Just go to ISB to be a better management professional, build your skills. It will improve your chances to get into consulting, or for that matter, any management career. Like, read books because you want to read. Don't read because it will help you get into consulting. First of all, there's no consulting focused book that I know. I didn't read any. you will have enough opportunity to prepare for consulting as a career once you get into IC, but don't start there. Like IC is not a consulting school. I mean, yes, consulting companies hire a lot. It's a good grooming ground, but you know that you will thank me 5, 10 years down the line, not today. You'll understand what I mean. Just be a better professional. There's nothing else I can tell you. Focusing skills.
Thank you, Siddharth. I think we need one session on this for the current batch also. I should talk to Cass and you can maybe reiterate this for this batch. But just kind of picking up on, you mentioned that ISB will kind of groom you for that, and you don't necessarily need to put in effort before that. Gayatri, if I can just, kind of ask you to comment on this as well. If there's one thing that really worked for you at ISB, and it can be for consulting or not consulting, and one thing that you wish you could have done, more just to, because people say, when I also joined, that you have this transformative year at ISB and you go through a lot. So is there something that worked really well and something you wish you could have done to just make that a better experience? And I'll ask Rohit, Siddharth, and I think Amol has dropped, but Amol to chime in on this as well.
I completely agree with what Siddharth said. In fact, if Siddharth remembers, it's what the dean told us on the first day that we reached campus, that please don't treat this like a placement agency. It's not. If you approach it like that, you will also get disappointed very fast. It's to make yourself a better professional and a better management professional. It could be consulting, it could be anything. And what it definitely did for me is, I mean, I started the course thinking, oh God, like how am I going to do this? And how there's so many assignments, I need to do some of them myself. There is a study group, my study group. I don't know if that remembers, but I had the oldest and the youngest in my group, and what I took from it is how you work with different people. Given there is a very tight, everybody wants to get good numbers, but you still need to work. Sure, you might have 10 different priorities, but so does the other person. So how do you align? How do you manage people? How do you work along with people, not manage? I think that was for me one of the biggest takeaways that I took from the school. I'm not talking about acads and the faculty, because that's a given. I feel very fortunate that I had this opportunity. What I could do more, honestly, if you ask, I just had more fun and didn't it's like you want to do it all, but you just can't in that year. You need to trust the process. You need to trust the hard work that you put in, and you need to trust the school. But at the same time, the school doesn't owe you anything. Like, the school has not promised you that, oh, you have joined ISB now and hence you will get into MBB, for example. No, it's what you make out of it, right? And sure, yeah, MBB is, it's right up there, but it's not what the school promises at all. So it's not how I looked at it at all. I hope that answers your question. And I hope it answers a lot of the other questions that I'm reading in the chat box. That is it only for consulting? And somebody said that, there are schools like INSEAD and some of the other international schools where they get more placements from MBB. I mean, look at the number of students that we have now in ISB. I mean, the number is not even comparable to the number of students that they have over there. Also look at our country, right? Like, our population is far more. We have far more gifted and far more intelligent souls, I feel, to choose from as well. So it's an apples to oranges comparison, and it's not right.
Thank you, Gayatri. And we have Amol back on the call.
Soumya, can I add one thing? I think Gayatri really nailed a lot of things in this point, and I just want to underscore something. Look, I'm today a partner at BCG. At campus, I wanted to get in consulting, I could not. right? I mean, of course, I got a consulting offer. I didn't get the MBB offer at campus. Look, placement is just one day. It's just a matter of hours. Things go wrong. Something went wrong with me, right? On that day, it just didn't work. Please stop associating ISP with placement. Build skills. You like something, just push yourself in that direction. Just keep moving. You'll figure out. I was not hired into BCG because of my. It was not a campus placement. I joined as a lateral. I was not hired because of my GP or anything. So please stop running in that race. If I can tell you one thing I learned ISP, it was in ISP, it was humility. When we entered, all of us were from like awesome backgrounds, and we were the stars of our college schools, and suddenly you realize you're in a place and there are 500, 600 people around you. Everybody feels so awesome. Like first thing was like it's overwhelming. Then you realize and you start appreciating. To be honest, like one of the things I'm very, very, very thankful to ISP for is teaching me that success really means different things, and you just don't have a formula to it. I had a classmate, and Gayatri, you might remember this story. I had a classmate who was a major in army. We were learning negotiation in a negotiation class, and he basically told, yeah, I know about negotiation. I've done a little bit. And he told us about the story. He went to Africa. He had to go and negotiate with terrorists on behalf of UN Peace Corps. And he went into terrorist camp with nothing in hand and to negotiate a peace agreement. That's negotiation. I look around, I have my classmates, multiple IAS officers who are running states, who are just delivering so much social impact. Who am I? Like, I have a classmate who is running a unicorn, who has built a unicorn from scratch. Who I have multiple classes have founded so many amazing startups. Come on, what are we talking about? Like, I mean, to be honest, do I associate now my success as something which I'm the rock star of ISP? No, I'm not. I have so many people around. I look up to them. I'm not. They were not the toppers of the class, guys. Please don't run that race. Please be a better version of yourself. If you can just, you will thank me 5 years later. You will not realize it right now. I look around. I see somebody who was, in classic definition, you would call a very average student. Now in Europe, living life like I can really imagine. I look at him and I feel like, yeah, that's the life I want to live. So, guys, everybody I know from ISP who has come out is doing well, but not competing with each other. You're going there to be a better version of yourself. Please join ISP for that reason, not for this. Because you will land with discipline, right? You'll be among 600 really smart people. Please don't start competing and you want to be in the 50 people who land in XYZ firm. That's not the intent. You want it, it'll still happen for you. It'll not happen at ISP campus. You can get it off campus as a lateral. It's okay. ISP will give you opportunity. But that's not why you're there. Go and be a better version of yourself. Sorry if it sounds too much of jam, but I just thought with all the questions, this is really, really important. And I cannot underscore when I look around how much I get inspired by my classmates, and it is not the set of the top X percentage who inspire me. In fact, the most wow things have been achieved by people who no one would expected them to. If I can go with traditional definitions, guys, if you relate to that.
No, I completely agree. And just to add, Siddharth, if you remember, we had somebody from NSG who was part of the the terrorist attack in Bombay and was responsible for rescuing some of the people from the area around the synagogue, etc. I mean, really, when you're talking about negotiation, there is nobody better that you can learn from, right? I mean, it's different negotiating an SOW and it's different negotiating what these guys do. So it's a very humbling experience, and just make the most out of it.
Thank you, Gayatri. If I can also add an anecdote to this. So I'm right now, of course, a student at ISB, and someone in my study group is only 24 and has sold a very successful startup to Yoga Bar, is now starting another firm while at ISB. And a second thing is, I'm sure a lot of you on the call must be aware, but one of the international badminton champions from India is also part of this batch. So we often have this conversation. We're going to the rec center. here in campus, and to play badminton, and we'll see him and we'll be like, okay, we are now literally playing with one of the best players in the world, and we get to sit in class with him and converse with him. So like completely agree on the kind of humbling experiences. And I'm only in term 2 and I can already feel it. So of course for you guys, it's been a number of years. Rohit, if I can maybe request you to add on this as well. And, because a lot of people are also asking, like Siddharth mentioned, they want to get into consulting. Did you even think about, this is the growth trajectory, and how much does it actually matter coming into ISB? Like, have you seen people, changing? We, of course, write our own essays that, this is what we want to do. This is why I want to come into ISB. But how important is that, and how does that change, in that you're at ISB? If you can maybe throw light on that as well.
I think, uh, honestly, there are people who come into ISB with a aim, and I think for some people it works well. That people have clear goals of where they want to be. But the other way to look at it is you're also on your individual journey, right? You're here to explore things beyond the domain where you have studied. ISB is a place where you meet people for different walks of life. From a student perspective, you get to meet professors who are doing cutting edge research. During the year at ISB, you will see many people come in who are very accomplished in their respective fields. And I remember that the year I was at ISB, Sri Harsha Majeti, who was the founder of Swiggy, he had come in that year, and he told us the story of how he was almost about to give up before he started Swiggy. You come there and you listen to their stories. Food tech, if you really think about it, back in 2014-15 was not such a big thing. So the world is evolving, and while you're at ISB, you could find your dream, right? Or let's put it this way, you could find something which you find interesting, and you can decide to reorient yourself in pursuing in that direction. A lot of people obviously rightly say that there are a lot of consulting firms which come to ISB to pick up students, but there are a lot of e-commerce companies who also come to ISB, right? That's a big bucket of recruiters. E-commerce is doing some really cutting edge stuff, getting, like, think about Amazon, like, they've how they have changed in the span of 10 years, how we buy stuff, right? If you think about 15 years back and now, and a lot of people I know from ISB have been at Amazon to change how we buy stuff, right? So in terms of what domains, there are traditional domains, obviously, but beyond that, it's also a place for you to discover new areas, new domains, which suits your individual journey and preference, right? At least that was something which I was very conscious about as I went into ISB. I had no particular preference to consulting. I was open to look at and evaluate multiple different domains. And then obviously it's also a function of being realistically what you actually can achieve or get, right, immediately out of ISB. And there could be things you may have to work towards getting, may take a couple of years, 3 years, 4 years, to get there, but it helps you widen your realm of possibilities in your mind. Is how I have looked at it at my during my year at ISB.
Thank you, Rohit. Very reassuring. I can already see the chats have suddenly become like more mellow and more positive about, all the experiences that you're sharing. So Amol, if I can also request you to maybe just chime in here. Did you know, for example, that this is what you want to do coming in, or do you see people do that? And uh, how do you think kind of ISB, changes that or changes the person you are, like Siddharth, Rohit, and Gayatri have also kind of mentioned?
I think so. I definitely did not come into SB thinking I will land here. But why I came to SB was to do something different about it. I will not dwell too much into, I think so, my fellow panelists have touched base on a lot of these points. I think so what ISB future proofs you for is to be ready for any challenge which comes through you. It builds that thinking process within you, which I realized, at least in my case, after I spent like get out of college for 2 years or so. That is where, so we do not know how the business will look like in 5 years. 10 years ago, things were very, very different if you look at it. If you look from the e-commerce perspective, from Uber, from all these things, where we, or maybe look 15 years back, the world was very, very different. Now everybody has a cell phone in a hand. There are more cell phones in India than the toilets. So this is a very unique statistic. What I am confident ISB has prepared me for is next 5 years, next 10 years, however the business changes, however the world changes, I'm prepared to take that challenge head on. And I'm pretty sure it's not just my preparation, but another very important factor within ISB is the the people who you have worked with, the fellow ISB colleagues. I always have somebody to say reach out to, or say if you say if any problem in career professionally, I definitely have a huge ISB alumni to look up. I think so. That is what ISB providing to you very large thing.
Thank you, Amol. And I can confirm this.
Can I add one thing? I think to the question around do you need to know your aim when you get into IT? Look, I have a piece of advice. Look, I think just 1 year. Things will fly by fast. Usually, people can do two things very well, max maybe three things. One thing that I think almost everyone doesn't get enough of at ISB is sleep, because there's just so much to do around, every hour of sleep feels like a waste of opportunity. So among doing party to, acad, to participating in competitions, to taking a leadership role, to some specific opportunities. For example, one of my classmates wanted to be an academic associate and, do a PhD in the future. So some of the people want to do entrepreneurship, and you can launch ventures while you are at ISP. I would say that, you can do justice to two of the objectives well, and stretch to three at the cost of further sleep or something else. But you should know what two or three things you're looking for. One of the things which funnily one of my friends are going for was also, just to make friends, find a girlfriend, get married. So you can have your reasons, it's your journey. Just know what you're looking for. I mean, have fun, lots of parties around, just know what you're looking for. Like focusing on two or three things will help. You can't do everything. It's 1 year is just, I just has too much to offer. You will not be able to get everything out. You will look back and say, if I had more time, I would have done this thing more. Hence, having a sense of what a priority for you is. It's not about knowing what career you want to get into. That's very different. But some sense of priorities on what do you want this 1 year to look like.
Thank you. So that can totally feel ISB has too much to offer and leaves all of us sleep deprived. But so few more questions, and I think we do have only some time left before we hand over to the admissions team for questions as well. But one question that I have for all of you again, and Rohit, maybe you can pick it up first, is one, how have you seen ISB change, over the years from your time at ISB and now, given that, whenever you interact with ISB alums? And second, any one particular, fond memory that maybe you can share with us at ISB that, kept you going, or you still fondly remember, that kind of encapsulates your experience at ISB?
I think as an alumni, it's I have been in touch with the school from multiple touch points. ISB keeps organizing sessions like this where you're interacting with aspirants. There are multiple, still these courses which ISB still offers, like alumni can come and keep themselves updated with new topics. And also from a point of view of a lot of networking sessions are there for different cities. And generally, even like while the school organizes some, you generally keep in touch with your network, because that is I would say, that's a really long-term game. You build your network, you make friends, and as your batch grows senior, like you will know people in your batch pretty nicely. When they grow up in their careers, these contacts, that you build will become very valuable from a career point of view. You also make a lot of friends And I think as everyone has pointed out, in ISB is a pretty intense year, and because of the level of intensity which is there, and the friends that you make there, doing those late nights, if you play sports, being out at the rec center or at the tennis courts. I think those are, like, probably for me, the time which I spent at the recreational center. It's had such a beautiful campus. Generally, like, it's uh, very fond memories overall. It's hard to go back to specific memories, but generally, I think my time, entire 1 year at ISB, is a very fond memory for me overall.
Thank you, Rohit. Amol, what about you?
I have been stressed as not to talk about the real fond memories, which I think so all of us you can relate to being an MBA college. But I think so. My fondest memory is interacting with people from different walks of life. I think so. Most of the before I was like being doing the CA and all, I never got a chance to go to college. I did my CA all throughout my life. I stayed in Delhi. Those of you know CA, the biggest hub in Delhi is Lakshmi Nagar, and I stay like 2 kilometers away from Lakshmi Nagar. So I really never went out of the home. When I went to US, it was my first time. So ISB provided me that experience, that college experience, that whole staying, doing those late nights, staying in hostels, interacting with those, making those lifelong friends. I think so that those are one of the fondest memories I have. I was the first couple of weeks I was talking to this girl, and then you get to realize she is actually a F4 Formula driver. So you tend to expect a guy but a girl, and then this girl, the best part is, I'm still friends with her. I sometimes go to a Maruti workshop with her, and she builds her own cars. She gets parts imported. She's sponsored by Maruti. She gets the part imported from Germany. She builds her own car. The best and interesting part is she goes to a Maruti workshop to get her car serviced, and then the service engineering guy tries to bullshit her, saying she's a girl, and she listens for 10 minutes and then takes down that guy like anything. That is, I think, so the funniest part. And I always go make a point to go with her whenever she's taking those services. So I don't think so I would have ever met some girl Formula driver outside of an ISP. So these are some of the fondest memories I have.
Thank you, Amol. Gayatri, do you have anything to add to that?
I think my fondest memories are like Rohit said, it's the whole year. But if there is one, I think I'll never forget the last OED party, honestly, for me, because it was so emotional. We were all very unhappy that the year is coming to an end. And it was irrespective of who got placed where. I think that the bond that we had as a batch, it's not like some people were very happy, oh, the year is getting over and I'm going to go to McKinsey right now. Or, I'm sadder because, the year is coming to an end and I didn't get McKinsey. I think that spoke for itself what the year meant for each of us. It's a really big batch, so you can't be friends. You're not best friends with everybody. But like Amol was mentioning, these few connections that you pick up, and it lasts you a lifetime, I think. So I think for me, that was it.
Thank you, Gayatri. Siddharth, if I can ask you to maybe share something as well on how you've seen the ISB brand evolve and any one fond memory that you have from your time at ISB.
Very difficult question. How have I seen brand evolving? Look, I think in a short period, what I see, the faculty, the management has achieved is just amazing. Right? Please understand that it's a very young school. For a young school to achieve as much as ISB has done, it's just phenomenal. Phone memory, too many. But I really think the dunking on the ISB birthdays used to be, very small, fun ritual which we enjoyed all the time. My eyes open to, the beauty of rec center after placements happened. Somehow I just couldn't do justice to using it enough before that. So it post placements, I just looked around and it was such a beautiful campus. It's so many fun memories. It's hard to say, but yeah.
Thank you, Siddharth. I think with that, I'll maybe just ask you all to give a closing comment for people who are here. Most of them, of course, are looking for a career in consulting and also looking to join ISB. So Amol, if I can maybe start with you for any closing comments you have.
Sorry, Soumya, you broke in between for me. Can you repeat the question?
Yes. So I was just saying that just as a closing remark, if you have anything for the people who joined us on call today, because they're of course looking to get into ISB or get into consulting after ISB. So if you have had any piece of advice or anything you want to share.
Sure, definitely. Although all four of us are consulting, but ISB has a lot to offer beyond consulting also. So don't just look at consulting. There are a lot of other opportunities, and it's not just consulting is a high thing. There are a lot many careers you're not even aware of. Come to ISB with an open mind. Do not have this inhibitions. Try to explore your opportunities. You will be surprised to know what different things are there in the world and what different career opportunities are. There are some careers I have never heard about before I came to ISB, that these type of things exist in the market. But ISB provide take the full benefit of it. Do not straitjacket, do not stereotype yourself into just, okay, I've come here for this thing only. Keep an open mind, explore everything, and hopefully a lot of you will make through it.
Gayatri?
I don't think I'll say anything new. I think Amol covered it and we've covered it throughout the session. I think definitely the one prerequisite is please come with an open mind. The second is please don't come in and expecting the school to do wonders for you. It's a wonderful school if you take the most out of it, which is not placement alone. Placement, I feel, is a byproduct of this whole thing. And I think, yeah, I mean, it's also a cue to your previous question. The world has changed, and there are so many new things to do. You'll realize only once you get to ISB that sheer consulting is coveted, and it's great. It's a huge adrenaline rush for those who get it. But there's just so much. So please keep an open mind. It's not just a consult school. Definitely not anymore.
Thank you. Rohit?
One of the things which I liked, which Amol said, is you should think more in terms of future proofing yourself, which can happen only if you have an attitude to learn new things. It's a place which has the right infrastructure, the right opportunities, the right talent in terms of professors for you to learn things outside of your domain, for you to explore new areas to work in the future. And as I said, the world is, as everyone's saying, the world is changing. You don't know what kind of jobs will be in the future. All you can do is build skills. It's a very skills focused market now, and that is should be your focus. I think apart from the entire learning aspect of it, it's also a place where you are coming into the school at that time and age in your life where you will form a lot of deep friendships, and that is something which you will obviously once you graduate, and that's also true for any B school, not just specific to ISB. But the friendships the friends which you make here will be something which you will cherish the most once you leave the school.
Thank you, Rohit. Siddharth, any closing comments?
Weren't I given enough yarn? So I'll just take everyone's time and all the best. Look, it's a fantastic school. So that's all I can say. I'll just clap.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, Rohit, Siddharth, Gayatri, and Amol for joining today. I'm sure we'll see many more of these sessions in the coming year for everyone in the audience. So please stay tuned. And I will now hand over to Ketan from the admissions team. I did see you have a lot of specific questions on admissions, and I believe Ketan is probably best suited to answer those questions. So Ketan, over
Thank you, Soumya, for moderating this session so wonderfully. You tried to extract as much as you could. Really appreciate, and I'm very happy that our alumni were magnanimous enough to take all these questions and answer with all their effusiveness. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Anmol, Gayatri, Rohit, and Siddharth for taking out time for this session. I'm sure students and candidates would have learned a lot. All of you can probably log off. I think now it's going to be a specific admission session and admission question answer session that we are going to have. Soumya, you can also log off. Probably, I think we are done for the day as far as the careers in consulting is concerned. And of course, if the students have more questions, they will write to us and we'll, of course, be giving answers to them in a very phased manner. So thank you, everyone. And I think you all can log off and we can just take the questions pertinent to the admissions thing and the process thing that we have at ISB.
Thank you. Thank you, Soumya.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye,
Thanks a
everyone.
lot. Bye-bye.
Yes, so people, if you have any questions relating to admissions at ISB, how the admission procedure is, then of course we'll be more than happy to take any questions. You just need to raise your hands and I'll unmute you. Karthik, can I just unmute them because I'm not getting the option of unmuting them?
Okay.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hi everybody. My question is regarding when does the interview process start post the application process?
Okay, so once you submit the application, our first round deadline is September 4. And once the applications are submitted, it takes around 20-25 days for you to get an invite for the interview.
So like in October, right?
Yeah, yes, definitely, yes.
Okay, and the session would obviously start in April 23, right?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Ketan,
Karthik, can we mute everybody? I would like to unmute them one by one so that they can ask questions. Otherwise, everybody will keep on asking. They will not understand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good evening, sir.
Karthik, can we unmute them one by one?
Okay.
Because if everybody unmutes themselves, then we cannot ask questions.
Okay.
Ketan, can I speak?
Yeah, please. Yes.
So I wanted to understand, are there any suggestions or any references that you can give on how to prepare for these essays that we write? There's going to be 2 essays, right?
Great. So what happens with these essays is that we get an insight into your personality, right? And whatever you write in those essays basically come back to you as questions in the interview as well. So I would say that the first question is basically an insight into your personality. How are you as an individual? What is something that has instigated you and your personality over the years, right? So it is basically something in which you can manifest everything that you are as a person, right? And the second question is pertinent to the kind of orientation that you have towards your career. For example, you might also be required to write, why do you want to come to ISB? Why do you think PGP is a program that can help you transmute your personality and your career? So these are the 2 facets. We actually look at your uniqueness of your personality, what kind of leadership roles, what kind of initiatives have you taken in your life? And secondly, how much clear-cut orientation you have, or what kind of plans you have for your future. These are the 2 most important things. We actually look at the candidates, what they bring to the cohort also. So these are a few things that you need to keep in mind while you write essays. Be very, be true to yourself. Do not write something which is too melodramatic or something which is not you, because obviously the questions will be asked, then it can put the candidate in a spot if he has written something which he doesn't actually do. So this is my advice for writing the essay.
So since you said that it should have like a clear career projection that we should tell about ourselves. So if we do not really have that, does it fall on a negative
Look,
place?
the only thing that you are required to say or profess at the time of interview is, why do you want to come to ISB and PGP, right? Everything revolves around that. Because if we are trying to get into any institution, if you are trying to do any good thing in life, I think we must be having a kind of a conjecture in our own mind as to why you want to do it. I'm sure you must have done your research, and you will do your research when you, of course, fill in your application. ISB is, of course, ISB as a brand, it's the #1 MBA program in India. All those things are there. But what is your wish out of this program? I'm sure only you can answer. So I think this is something, of course, that is why we always ask the candidates to prepare for their applications with a good time in hand. September 4 is the deadline. You cannot actually start preparing on September 1 for the application. Start your application now as early as you can. You will take time to write your essays, and it happens with everybody. It's very common. Don't worry about that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So Karthik, do I have the option of unmuting them? I do not see that.
So Ketan, can I go next?
Yeah, please.
My question is that, is there any difference in the level of strictness in the interview process or the selection process between round 1 and round 2?
Okay, so there is absolutely no difference between round 1 and round 2 in any aspect, honestly speaking. Whether it is your application, your essays, and obviously the interviews, as you just pointed out. The only reason why we actually coax the students to apply in round 1 is that if they get selected, they definitely have a very good chance to prepare for the transition. So let's say we actually ask the candidates to have 2 years of experience. That means the candidate, while he's getting selected, he's working somewhere. So if you're working somewhere, of course, you need time to resign, you need to serve your notice period, you need to plan a transition, because you can get any of the campuses, be it Mohali or Hyderabad. You will also need to move along with your, if you are married, you can move with your spouse. All those things have to be planned. That's why we always say that you apply in round 1. There is no disadvantage in round 2, apart from the fact that in round 1, you can actually get up to 100% scholarships on the tuition fee. Round 2, by the time we reach round 2, those 100% scholarship thing actually gets obliterated from the system. You still can get around 50%, but yes, round 1 definitely has a more chance of bagging 100% scholarship. Apart from that, there is no stringent and there is no inimical factor, I would say, that can restrict you in round 2.
Okay, thanks, Ketan. Actually, the reason I asked this question was because I thought it would be better for me to have more time to prepare before applying to ISB first.
Definitely. Everybody to themselves. I mean, round 2, as I said, does not put you in any kind of a disadvantage.
Oh, thank you.
Hi, Ketan. Can I speak?
Hi. Yeah, hi.
Hi, Ketan. So the thing is, I mean, I actually have 2 questions right now. So, I mean, in between my education, I have 2 years of gap. I mean, like once I met with an accident, and the other one was due to some other reason. So, does these gap years, affect my chances of getting into the ISB?
No, they don't actually, because we understand that people do go and suffer and basically want to do various things in life, and for that you need to have a break. People go through a lot of things, so this is not a disadvantage at all. It's just that definitely the questions are going to come to you at the point of interview, right? They will be asking you about what you did in that gap period, or how do you think that gap period pulled you back or pushed you back. So you should be able to justify. That's it. There is no disadvantage, because there are very many people who are applying for different competitive exams. They come with 3-4 years of gap also. So this happens. This generally happens. And this will not put you in any kind of a disadvantage at all. It's just that you need to be sure of why again you want to come and do the PGP.
Got it, Karan. Thank you. And also I have one more question actually. So, so the thing is, I've actually finished my MBA in finance in September 2021. So right now I'm working in an MNC, but I just have a total work experience of only 4 months.
Okay.
So like when I mean, when would be the ideal time, to submit an application or all
Okay.
this? I'm actually confused about the timelines.
I know, I understand that. So ISB has 3 entry options into the PGP program. So the first one is the direct entry for all those people who have more than 2 years of experience. Second one is for the people who have less than 2 years of experience, and you fall in that category. So that option is known as the early entry option. That means you can apply to the PGP program. Your deadline remains the same for round 1, that is September 4. Obviously, you will be interviewed if you get selected and get through the first round. And if you also get past the interview round, you get into the merit score, you will be issued an offer, but that will be a deferred offer, which means you can only join the PGP program once you complete 24 months of work experience, which I think should be around 2024 as in your case. So early entry option is basically for all those candidates who have less than 2 years of experience. And it's a very good option because then you can basically concentrate. You are rest assured that you have an offer from the #1 MBA program in India. And of course, you can plan your work experience also, depending upon the kind of specializations that you want to have at PGP in ISB.
Got it, Ketan. And I also, I'm really sorry if I'm bothering, but I have one last question actually. So like, what would be the ideal GMAT or the GRE score?
Okay.
I mean, yeah.
Okay. So in ISB, we do not have an ideal. Of course, the ideal scenario in this world is to get as much as you can, right? But the thing is that even if you get a 760, 770, I mean, it does not guarantee you a place in the PGP program. And we have people sitting in the class with 640, 630 as well. Right. So it all depends upon a holistic profile of the candidate, which is based upon your academics, work experience, essays that you write, letters of recommendation, awards and achievement, and of course, the final round, which is the interview. So there is no desideratum, there is no sacrosanct score for getting into ISB. Yes, you try and get as much as you can, and then depending upon your profile and your interview and all those things, you can definitely make it.
Okay, Ketan. Got it. Thank you so much, Ketan. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, Ketan. Can I go next?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So, Ketan, I basically have over 3 years of experience in supply chain. And I'm a certified supply chain specialist, and post which for about 8 to 9 months, I started my own business, and I also alongside work with my father. I've currently taken a break from my work to study for my GMAT. But would that break hamper my chances of getting in? Because I think, considering I've taken a break, my break would be for at least another 3 to 4 or maybe 6 months. And it clearly says in the requirements that I need to be a full-time employee until March of 2023, which is the year I'm applying in. So would that work experience be sufficient? And would that be sufficient is basically my question.
So the basic thing is that you need to have 2 years of full-time work experience. It does not matter whether you're working still or not.
Okay.
Right. So it does not matter whether you are taking time off or you're taking a sabbatical or anything. If you have a 2 years of work experience, now you are good to apply for the direct entry, as simple as that. Yeah.
Okay, so currently I'm working alongside my father. So my LOR would be from my family member, which I know in one of the live sessions on Instagram, one of the admission team members had said that it cannot be a family member. So if my LOR is from my previous company, which is an MNC, would that be okay?
Yes, that would be okay. Apart from that, if you are if you're working with your father, are you getting also paid for it?
Yes.
Okay. And it's a full-time activity if you're doing it. Then even for people who have their own family business or who are doing some kind of a business, they can also get LOR from their vendors, clients who can vouch for you and the kind of activities that you have done for your business and taken your business to new heights. That can also be done. But yes, if you can get it from your previous employer, that also doesn't hamper your chances at all.
Okay. Last question.
Yeah.
Let's say, throughout my course at ISB, I learn more about different subjects. Let's say I'm currently from a supply chain background, and if marketing is something that interests me, like would that switch in the role like make it possible for me to sit for placements during my, like my, study course with ISB?
Got it. So what happens at ISB that the people who come always do not have what do you say? I mean, they do not come with a clean. They come with a clean slate, honestly. So if I tell you one thing from the placement point of view, almost close to 79% people they go for a functional change, right? In whatever roles. Almost 78%, again 78.5% go for an industry change. And almost 65% go both for an industrial as well as the functional change. So there are very many people who do that. Of course, we have a cohort which is very diverse, people coming from different walks of life. So we have people, let's say, from a sports background going into manufacturing and all that stuff. It keeps on happening. And that is not something which is that should be worrying you at this point of time. So be rest assured that it does not matter, because you basically work for it, and the companies come, they do not mind. I mean, they come with a profile, and if you suit them and their requirements, that is never any kind of impediment for you.
Okay, I just have one last question.
Yeah.
Since I come from, like currently I'm working, like with my father, and I also have a secondary like own business. So let's say throughout this journey, I do, like figure out that, like marketing is something that is my specialty, and I've currently put my own business on hold. Is it okay for me to sit for those placements? Is it okay for me to switch to a corporate job? Would that be something that they would take, or would it differ from company to company?
No, it does not matter. You obviously can sit for the placements. In fact, there are very many students who go the other way around. In fact, during the course, during the program, they develop an ardor for, let's say, entrepreneurship. So what they do is basically, we help them to set up their own enterprise and companies. We give them all kinds of support, and they can be given stipend also for 1 year to sustain their business. If at all that business doesn't work, they can come again in the second year and sit for the placements. Right. So either way, it's not something which is too difficult. You can come from an entrepreneurial background and sit for placements, and vice versa.
Okay. Great. Thank you so much, Ketan.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, Ketan. May I go?
Hello.
Yeah, Dipanshu, go ahead. I will go after you.
Oh, sure. Thank you. Thank you. I just had one question. So I was filling the application form, and then there's a section achievements and awards where we can write down. So I just wanted to ask, like our company gives us for the best performers every quarter, they give us awards.
Right.
So do they justify as well?
Yes, why not? Of course, I mean, you can definitely mention it. You can also mention it, of course, when you write your essays. And anything that you think that you should mention, do mention it, because, that is our way of exploring your personality. We can only go into the intricacies of it when you yourself come out and explain what you have actually done. So I think that is something which is absolutely fine.
Okay, and one more thing. So I have a certification as well, which is for a solutions architect, an AWS certification. So should that be put in the awards part, or should that just be covered in my essay?
You can write it in the essay. If you get a chance to upload it somewhere in the academic credentials, you can upload that. I mean, obviously that will come down to you as question in the interview, and that will be a good thing because you've already done that. So you'll be in a good position to answer.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Ketan.
Thank you.
Hi, Ketan. Good evening. Sandeep here.
Hi, Sandeep.
Ketan, I have two queries. My first query is, what is ISB's expectation when they want us to get a letter of recommendation from our employee? So what is that exactly they want us to capture in letter of recommendation?
Okay. So a letter of recommendation, first of all, is not a letter that basically you have to get from your employer, right? So what you do is, once you fill your application form, in that application form only, there is a space where you have to fill the name of the recommender, right? And their email ID. Ideally, it should be an official ID. As soon as you submit the application, a link is triggered to your recommender, and he gets a chance to fill things about you. What we want from a recommendation letter is that the person should be knowing you recently, until recently, right? So it cannot be from a person who knew you 5 years back, or it cannot be from a company you worked 3 years back, because you must have grown in the last 3 years. Somebody who can vouch for you as you are at present, that is an ideal letter of recommendation, right? And of course, whomsoever you want to write your LOR, you should contact them first. It will take them some time, 15-20 minutes, to fill that letter of recommendation. Of course, they should be knowing you personally. So even if you get a letter of recommendation from the Prime Minister of India, it is of no use, because they will be writing general stuff. So the letter of recommendation has to be from somebody who has seen you, supervised you. Even if it is not a supervisor, it can be any other senior who has seen you grow into the company and the kind of things you've done for the company. So that is what we are expecting.
Okay, I have one question.
Can I complete my question if you allow me, please?
Sorry, it was a follow-up question. So sorry, carry on.
Okay, thanks. So Ketan, in my case now, I have about 18 plus year of work experience. To get into ISB, I have taken a break to prepare for my GMAT.
Great.
And unfortunately, what has happened, both the line managers have left the organization now. And I have worked for about 3.5 years as a marketing lead with a reputed multinational.
Okay.
But in that particular case, can I go back to my previous employer and request them to?
Yeah, like look, what happens is, if there is no possibility of getting a LOR from the current employer, then obviously we'll have to go back to the previous employer. So that is something which you have to look at. It will not be what do you say, a kind of, it will not stunt your progress in the application. But yes, because as I told you, our intention of a letter of recommendation is to basically know about the candidate a bit more from the professional point of view. So whosoever can explain that about you, I think should be good enough. There are chances when we are not in very good terms, when we are not very, what do you say, hobnobbing well with our supervisors. So that's all okay. You can get it from the previous employees.
Okay, and my last question is, as I share with you my profile, I have about 18 plus year of work experience. I have looked at the batch profile. There are hardly 10% who are, I would say, more than 10 years of work experience in ISB.
Yes.
So does that put me at a kind of a disadvantage of getting shortlisted?
No, it doesn't.
Profile.
No, it doesn't. In fact, it adds to the variety, because what happens is 10% in ISB means almost 100 students in the class.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So 10% is not that small number per se when it comes to the actual numbers. So you will get very many people in the class who have an experience of 15 years, 10 years. We have instances where people have 22 years of experience from a particular industry, and they have come to join the PGP program. In fact, today only I was discussing it with someone. He was 51 years of age and he wants to do a PGP program, right? Wow. So it doesn't put you at any kind of a disadvantage. And also the CAS team works in tandem with you to get the profile suited for your kind of experience that you have.
Great. My last question, Ketan, any tentative timeline for the round 2 for ISB?
Yeah, there is a tentative timeline. It is close to November, first week of December. So that is the tentative date as of now. Exact dates, of course, we'll be discussing and closer to round 1. So should be around that time only. Yeah.
Okay, and if I understand it correctly, we are supposed to apply only in one round, right?
Yes, you can apply only once in one season. And if the candidate does not get selected by any reason, then he can apply next year.
Great, this was helpful.
Thank you.
Someone was asking a follow-up question. I interrupted.
Good evening.
Yeah, can I go next?
Yeah, thanks, Ketan, once again.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Can I speak?
Yeah, one by one, please, if you can. Yes.
Yeah, good evening, Ketan.
Yes, good evening.
Yeah, I have one doubt like that. I'm working as a part-time teacher in a school. And my doubt is that, my question is that, does the work experience of teacher can be counted in ISB?
Look, there are 3 main caveats that you have to fulfill once you are counting work experience. Firstly, it has to be a full-time work experience, right? You should be getting paid for it. Second thing. And the third thing is that your work experience, the full-time work experience that we talk about, should not be coinciding with any other full-time activity that you are doing. So it means that you are, let's say, a student or and still working for some company for some periods of time for few hours. That will be regarded as a part-time work experience, right? Similarly, if you are working full-time at 2 places, only one place will be regarded as a full-time experience. So in your case, you'll have to figure out whether you're working full-time, part-time, or how is it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if
Thank
you
you.
if you're out of college, you can definitely go for the early entry option, and that should be of help to you. By the time you get selected, you have time to build your experience for 24 years and then join the program.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Ketan, can I go next?
Yes, please.
So Ketan, I've been working for 3 years now, and I have taken a break for preparation. So just had this question in my mind that what if I don't get selected this time and I still go for preparation phase for the next year? So will that hamper my entry into the ISB?
No. Unfortunately
Basically,
or
we can.
fortunately, what happens is we get around 5,000 applications and we select only 800, 900. So there are very many people every year who reapply. So yes, the only thing which a reapplicant has to do is to write an extra essay. A new applicant has to write only 2 essays. A reapplicant has to write 3 essays explaining what extra did he do in that last 1 year that he thinks should be good enough for him to get into ISB. That's a kind of an essay that we actually want that candidate to write.
Okay. And Ketan, one more thing that I have a lot of experience when it comes to social services. Now that is not something that is completely not monetary. So like, will that thing be good? And since I've been working there for like 5 to 6 years now, so getting a letter of recommendation from someone who I have been working, like my college chairman or someone, since I've been working 3 years, so will that count? Or like, how many letter of recommendations can I get? Is there any bar on?
We require only 1 letter of recommendation, right? And again, as you said that you have been working in an NGO, I think it's a very good experience that you have, but it is not a work experience per se, right? Because as I said, you should be getting paid for it. You can definitely put it in your essays because that adds to your personality, and that's how you can basically mold your interview in a way that if you write that you've been doing it, definitely there'll be questions pertaining to that experience that you have in the NGO. So I think that is what you are asking.
Yes. And
it definitely adds to your value. Yes. Yeah.
So a career gap basically won't affect much in the application.
Not at all. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Can I go next?
Yes, please. Yeah.
So I had a few questions regarding, first of them is what are the questions for the essays that we need to write for this year? Like, where can we find it?
You can find it in the application form, Abhinav.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So what happens is that there are 2 basic things that we look forward to in an essay, and that is what you're going to find when you log in and you fill in the application form. The first one basically wants to see the uniqueness of your personality, the kind of initiatives that you've taken in life. What is something which has transformed you or something which has instigated you as a person? The second one is about your career orientation, as to like how focused you are in your career, what have you done till now, why do you think the PGP program can bring about a transmutation in your career? All these things, these 2 things basically are good to go once you're writing your essay.
Okay. And coming to this LOR questions, like, do we have to take LORs both from college and the workplace?
No, there is only 1 LOR that a person needs to submit. Of course, if you are a working professional with more than 2 years of experience, you need to get that LOR from your company, any supervisor, any senior that you have.
Okay, so the thing is, like, the LOR that I have is from my first company where I worked, like Amazon, for 2.5 years.
Right.
That was my maximum experience, and post that I worked at Amazon, Dell. All of them are like 6 months. So like, I don't have a good rapport with those managers, and also
it doesn't matter if you can get. Yeah, we require only 1 LOR. So if that is not possible, I think that 1 LOR from Amazon will do fine.
Okay, and like, okay, so what is the process for scholarship and all? Excuse me.
Okay, so there is no process for scholarship because basically after your applications are submitted, after you have put in everything in the application form and you are done with the interview, basically take out a merit score. So depending upon the merit score, people get merit scholarship. It can be up to 100%, starts from 5 lakhs. That is one scholarship for which you do not need to apply. It comes to you straight away. Secondly, there is a need-based scholarship, which is given to the candidates with less than 12 lakhs of monthly income as a family income. Sorry, yearly income, family income I'm talking about. So if you have that kind of, somebody has that kind of a problem, then he can definitely apply for it. He will have to write an essay, and whosoever gets selected gets that kind of a merit need-based scholarship. Then there are scholarships for like diversity, scholarships for international diversity. There is a Bridge to India program, that is the candidates who applied from foreign countries and working there and who want to come back to India to do PGP. There are scholarships which are given to those candidates. But these, apart from that, there are scholarships which are given to the candidates once they become a part of ISB, right? So, for example, there is one Mr. Ramesh Khanna scholarship which is given to the meritorious students, for which once you become a part of it, of the PGP cohort, you write an essay. Whosoever essays get selected, they get the scholarship from, again, 2 lakhs, 5 lakhs, 7 lakhs, depending upon the kind of scholarships we have in that particular sector or segregation. Similarly, we have Bajaj Auto scholarship, we have Mansa Mandwa scholarship for women. So there are various scholarships that you can apply for. They will be provided to you, entire list, depending upon what kind of scholarships you want to have. You definitely have to work for it then. You have to write an essay for it. Yeah. Third scholarship is for the students who pass out of ISB, in fact. For example, if you're doing any good thing for the nation, then we have Develop India scholarship. Suppose after doing the PGP, you started an entrepreneurship venture which is actually helping the country. You can also get a scholarship for a particular amount of time, and it is given to a person for 1 year. So there are various scholarships, and first is the merit base. So it's only when you get or become a part of PGP, then only you can apply for the other scholarships.
Okay, got it, Ketan. Thank you. And also one more question, like what is a good time to submit your applications for round 1?
Now, right? Because what happens is the sooner you do it, the sooner you start your application, the sooner you realize what you have to do it, how you have to do it, honestly. Because
okay. So I asked to submit the application. Like I've started the process, I've started working on it. Like what is a good time to submit the application, like finalize it by what time?
I mean, if you are ready with your application today, you can submit it tonight. Absolutely no problem with that.
So it is first come, first serve base?
No,
like that?
No. The September 4 deadline is for everyone.
Okay.
All the applications are collected on September 24. Then the admissions committee takes a review of them. All the essays are read, all the documents are verified, and then of course, I mean, a date for the interview is given to all the candidates, and of course, that is the process. I mean, you do not get any extra thing for applying early. It's just that yes, you apply before in round 1, and therefore you are the first ones to get a call for the interview.
Okay, thank you, Ketan. That's all.
Thank you.
Great say.
Yeah, any other question that we have?
Hey, Ketan, can you hear me?
Yeah, hi, Shringa.
Hi.
Yeah.
Thank you for spending your time with us. It's been quite a lengthy session, but I think I had 2-3 questions in my mind, but then I think most of them were answered. The one that has not been answered is, does ISB provide any profile assessment opportunities or any such mock interviews which help students to actually understand where they can improve to enhance their profile? Enhance the profile for the application itself, and maybe is there a set template that is defined for a candidate that you guys are actually looking for PGP admissions?
I'll answer your second question first. So there's no set template as far as any particular thing that we are looking for in a candidate is concerned. So in fact, we are the ones who basically thrive on diversity. As I said, we have in our class army majors with 20 years of experience, beauty contest winners, runners up, right? So we are in talks with former women's cricketer who could be a part of the cohort next year, right? So there are doctors, musicians, singers, bloggers, everybody is a part of the cohort. So we are not looking for any set pattern, firstly. Secondly, yes, ISB in itself does not have any this kind of a program wherein we can actually teach how to prepare for a mock interview. But yes, as we go ahead in this round, in about 15-20 days from now, we'll have exclusive admission or I should say application sessions, wherein we will take questions regarding applications and what all you need to basically cater to and what all you should keep in cognizance when you are filling those applications, and if there are any problems that you're facing, that can be dealt with. Most important thing is that whatever you write in your essay, I mean, that if you can justify, I think you are doing good enough. You can also have a mock interview with any of the, you must be preparing for your GMAT also, right?
Yeah.
So any of the institutions that you're going to prepare for GMAT, they also give mock interviews. And they're well versed of what kind of interviews come to the students, right? So just be yourself. That is one advice from me. Just be yourself so that you don't have to remember what you wrote. It's a part of your personality, right? And I think that should save you through.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Most welcome. Yeah.
Hello, Ketan.
Hi.
Hello. Hi.
Yeah. Can I ask a question? Hello.
Yeah. Hi.
Yeah. Actually, I have a question about that. Do the ISB consider the work experience when we are enrolling for the course, like in admission, or when the session will start at that point of time?
Okay. So let's say you apply now, and the session is going to start next year in the month of April. So by 31st of March 2023, if you have 2 years of experience, you are good to come for the next batch. That is April 23. Sorry.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So guys, we have 10 more minutes. Obviously, we cannot take all the questions. There are very many hands which are raised. But yes, anybody who has any questions apart from the questions or answers we are dealing with, they can write to us at pgp@isb.edu, and we'll be more than happy to answer you back. Yes. So the next question is?
Yeah. So I have one question. You had mentioned just few minutes back that there is no difference between R1 application and R2 application.
Yeah.
So I just want to know, is there a difference between the acceptance rate of both the rounds, or
no? Yeah. Well, look, what happens is, firstly, sometimes back we also used to have a round 3, but we do not actually announce round 3 ever, because if we get because we have only 800 seats, so if our seats get filled, we actually do not go for round 3. And also round 3 becomes very difficult for the candidates, because they get their offers, let's say in the first week of March or last week of February. It becomes difficult for them to serve their notices and then join the program. But as far as acceptability rate is concerned, there is no set pattern. In fact, there can be instances where we have less acceptability in round 1 and more in round 2. And it has happened over the years. So as far as applying in both the rounds is concerned, it is not something which is predefined or goes on a set template. So there is no difference. Yes, honestly.
I have two more questions. I'll be very short and crisp about it. For second part is in continuation about the merit scholarship you had mentioned.
Yeah.
That is, once we write our essays, we get evaluated, we are interviewed, then the process is like score plus interview score plus whatever weighted points. Top 50, top 10 get some part of like percentage of the entire amount, right?
Correct.
That's what you mentioned.
Correct.
Okay, thanks for that. And third is like, can you just I know you have mentioned a lot about how an LOR should be, from whom it should be. Can you just mention about what exactly I need from my working manager to put in through that LOR, like how it's going to make a difference, and like, what are the things that it should essentially have? I know you have mentioned it, like the entire goal is to have what background of me, but if you can elaborate it in just 1 or 2 lines, that would be great.
Basically, look, as I told you, it should be from a person who is actually monitoring you one-to-one, right? So let's say if you get an LOR from the CEO of your company, for example, right? He is somebody who is your boss. Obviously, he's paying the salaries for it, or he might be also on a roll of the company. So he will not know you personally. The purpose of getting LOR from your supervisor or senior is that he can write things about you as a professional, right? So that is one thing which is very important, because we are not looking for general stuff about somebody, that he is very good and he works very well. This is not something. He should have worked with you to see you, what kind of professional you are and how you have grown. Secondly, there are mostly when the email gets triggered to the recommender, it's not about essays that he has to write about you. There are certain specific things on which he may have to write 3-4 lines, and that is why we always say that you first talk to your recommender and tell him that you are applying for a PGP program, and hence he should figure out some 15 minutes of 20 minutes of his time to fill the LOR. It is not something out of the box. It's just that he needs to say things about you in a very genuine manner.
Thank you so much. That's
Thank
all
you.
I have.
Thank you. Yeah.
Ketan, can I ask you a question, please?
Hi, Ketan. Okay, I'll go after you, Shan.
Sure.
Yeah.
I have a question. The early entry option, Ketan. So
Yeah.
I didn't find this on the website. So I have actually applied for the YLP, right?
Right.
And the deadline is 31st of August. Now,
Yeah. Okay. I'll explain about the YLP. So what happens is, in YLP is basically for the students who are in the pre-final year and final year of the colleges, right?
Yeah.
So yes, the first in round 1 we have 2 stages, right?
Yeah.
So first stage is October 15th, and the second stage is
I got that.
Yeah.
I actually have cleared round 1 already.
Okay.
So the deadline is around the 31st of August.
Right.
Now I think I might not be able to give the GMAT on 31st of August. So am I eligible to apply for the early entry options round 2? Because I've already, graduated this June only, last month. So since I've already started with my job, so if I'm unable to give my GMAT till 31st of August, am I allowed to apply for early entry option round 2 in November?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Because definitely you are now a professional. You started working, so definitely you can apply. So that is something you can do. Yeah.
And I attended a YLP session. So they said that you have around 100 seats reserved for the YLP students. Do you have a same quota for the early entry option as well?
Honestly, we also do not have a set quota for YLP. It's not exact 100. It can be a number close to that, right? But definitely there is no quota for early entry option. Honestly,
they are marked in the same metric as the normal PGP student.
Yes, definitely. Yes.
So doesn't the less work experience hamper it, because I only have like 3 months?
The interviewers are sagacious enough to know that, right? So when they are asking you any questions, they understand that your experience is lesser. So of course, your experience will not be as profound as somebody who is getting, let's say, 5 or 6 years of experience. And that is the same case with YLP. When they interview the YLP candidates, they know that he's just a student, right? So his experience will be absolutely nil as far as the work experience.
And just final question, any chance for an extension in the GMAT score like this year, like last year? Like last year for YLP extended by 1 month, right? Any possible extensions this year, or should I aim for early entry option?
Look, the thing is, what will happen at the very end, nobody can actually predict. Honestly, at this point of time, we do not have any intimation of that. Right. So yes. So if you think that you should apply for an early entry, and I think you are a good candidate to apply for EO, I think you should apply for it.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Ketan, thank you so much for your time, firstly.
Yeah.
I'll just keep it very small because I think we're short of time. Okay. My question is that I belong from an arts background. Okay, I've done my bachelor's and master's in arts, and now I have around 1.5 years of work ex. So I know like there is a minimum work ex. So till that time, I just wanted to ask that what are the prospects of an art student who's now I'm working in a finance field. So how does ISB take that, and how are my chances to get in, and do I have to like build on some skills before I get there so that it's much better for me there, and anything that I have to prepare in specific, because I'm very aware that all sorts of people apply to ISB from all backgrounds and all of that. So I just wanted to know a little bit about that.
Look, we basically believe that you should apply as a person you are, honestly, because what happens is that very many people who join the program, while they are in the program, they make a switch in their own minds as to what they want to do. Okay? So it's all good to be absolutely being from an arts background. It does not matter at all, honestly, because as you said rightly, diversity is the point where we are actually focusing, and you just should have done something well in the kind of field you are, and we are not looking for you to be in another field and then start doing something at all. So do what you are doing at the moment, and that should be good enough. Apart from that, of course, there is interview. You should be able to manifest your thoughts in the best possible way. Your essays, all those things are taken care of, so you don't worry about that.
Right. And also, is it possible that the admission committee can let me know and refer to me to someone who has been from the same background and
has been into ISB as like, alumni or something?
For that, I would suggest if you go to LinkedIn and basically search for the alums, you just type ISB alums. I think you should be able to get in touch with very many alums or who are from a specific background. I think that should be a good way of doing it, because we do suggest people to go to LinkedIn and search for the various profiles that we have from ISB alums. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much.
Ketan, quick question. I run a software firm, and I'll be traveling quite a bit between US and India. So is this something could be done remotely, or I didn't know whether it was a in-person?
Okay, Sunil. So, I mean, unfortunately, what happens with ISB PGP is that it's a full-time residential program, right?
Okay.
So, yeah. So, I mean, we actually it's sacrosanct for all the students to be in the campus for 1 year, and yeah. So that's why students or candidates actually put down their papers, serve their notice period, and actually become a part of the PGP program. So that's how the thing works.
So how does this work for entrepreneurs though? Then I mean, especially because entrepreneurs, it's very difficult to take.
Yeah, so they have to take a break. In fact, there must be somebody who can take care of their business in the interim, or whatever they learn in the class, they can actually deploy it in their entrepreneurial venture. It's just about managing time, honestly, because there are very many people around. ISB has an alumni base of 13,500 plus. 600 plus are having their own entrepreneurship business. In fact,
that's absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, carving out 1 year for an entrepreneur is much easier than somebody else. But my only question is travel, because when you have extensive travel, right? How do you manage it? That's my main question.
Basically, you don't manage. Basically, you resign and come back. So, I mean, there are other. Honestly speaking, there are other programs as well. Let's say for people who are having a very senior position. So there is another program which is an 18-month program, but that is dealt in a different manner altogether. For those programs, you have to have you basically deal with weekend classes, right? So there is a PGP Pro, PGP Max, which is for the candidates who absolutely cannot leave their job, and they have to do it alongside with their job. So I think those programs are more suited for you in that case.
Yeah, probably. All right, sounds good. Thank you, Ketan.
So thank you very much. In fact, we have reached the end of this session. I'm sorry I could not take all the questions because there are so many of you. I would again request you to please write to us at pgp@isb.edu. I'm putting it in the chat section. Please write to us, and I think we'll be more than happy to answer any of the specific questions that you have. I'm just writing my email ID. Thank you very much. It was a very enthralling session, first with the alums and then the kind of questions that we received. Thank you to everybody who stayed there for such a long period of time and listen to us. We'll soon be back next week. In fact, we keep on doing this career series things. So next week, we'll be back with another topic, and then any other question, we'll be more than happy to take. Thank you very much. Thank you. Good night.